Where am I? And I will turn my speaker off.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday/Tuesday Happy Feet meeting. Tonight, I'm really excited because we have three speakers that are going to talk about stress, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But some of you may have been stressed out by the website this week. There was a problem. If you could, it was challenging to log in to find and I'll pull it up. And has everyone been able to log into the website? And I don't know if you can see all the activity. You can see a place to find your own tracking and activity tracking here. If you need any kind of support, just put something in the chat and I can follow up with you. I know there are a few people that for whatever reason my emails keep bouncing back for, and so I will try to reach out to you. But whatever was wrong was I had the gentleman that helps us with the website fix it. So hopefully you're in good shape. But it looks like everybody's continuing to move despite all of the weather, and you found different ways to, whether it's snow shoveling or something else. You've done a great job. I appreciate everyone maintaining it. And we could talk a little bit about any kind of challenges you may have after the speakers. So getting on to, we have Dr. Will Davies, who is, he's waving there. You can see him. He is the Director of Education and the trained superintendent, and he is the creator of the Chill Project, which they're going to talk a little bit about the things that that they used at the Chill Project as well. But if you're not familiar with the Chill Project, it is a and Dr. Davies can talk a little bit more about it, but it's basically a mindfulness training and mental health support in many schools in the area, about 7 schools and probably even more since I've talked to you last. It's just an amazing program. And then Knapp is joining us as well. She is also with the Chill Project, and Lakin Weekland, if I'm saying that correctly. But I am gonna, should I turn the spotlight over to you, Dr. Davies, or Roz?
That sounds great. Thanks for the introduction. Just wanted to clarify, how long do we have again to go?
We have about an hour.
All right, great. Just don't want to run over, that's all. So thank you all for, allowing us to come speak with you tonight. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor. Greatly appreciate this privilege. So like Jen was saying, I'm the director of what's called the Chill Project, and we bring preventative evidence-based skill sets to kids, but also these skill sets apply to anybody across the board, and we're branching out and talking to folks who could use them in their daily lives. And we know that these skill sets work to help reduce symptoms of anxiety or depression, and can help us just de-stress. And when we get into a moment of acute stress, these skills can help us calm down a little bit faster. So I did bring Roz and Lakin with me this evening. Roz is our behavioral health educator at what's called Steele Center Tech, which is a technical school that has about 10 or 11 school districts in the South Hills that send their kids there. And then Lakin is a school-based therapist, licensed professional counselor who is at 2 of our elementary schools in the West Jefferson Hills School District. That's McClellan and Guildhall Elementary. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight. And Roz, if you would do us the honors of putting up the PowerPoint, that would be great.
All right.
All right. Wonderful. So the way we like to present, we love a lot of interaction. We would prefer not to talk to you the whole time, and allow for conversation to happen. And if you have any questions, just chime on in. We won't be offended. We actually love that kind of stuff. And, we'll be asking questions during this, and we try to have this be very interactive for you. You can also, if you want, you can use the chat at the bottom, and hopefully one of us picks it up. So I do have a little question for you. Roz, if you could go to the next slide. Okay, great. So how many of you can think about a recent moment in your life where you felt stressed? And I'm not talking like just a little bit stressed. I'm talking that it was so stressful that you couldn't focus. Like that kind of stress that like makes you shaky or that makes you really upset, like really mad, or you want to like run and hide and curl up into a ball, or maybe it makes you just totally kind of freeze in your place and you don't know what to do. All right. So I see a couple of hands go up there. So what we'll do, maybe Roz and Lakin and I. Okay,
So we
thank
have
you.
some in the chat. Yeah.
Thank you for the chats. Yes. Okay. Really appreciate that. So maybe Roz, Lakin, and I can share a couple of instances just to elaborate what we mean by this. So how many of you have ever been stuck in traffic outside of a tunnel? It's kind of a familiar, usual thing in this area. And maybe sometimes, maybe there's been some times where someone has cut you off, or you're sitting in traffic and you're late for an appointment or work or something like that, or for a meeting. And yep, thank you. Thank you for the chat down there. Yep, stuck in traffic. And when someone does that to you, how does that feel? Like someone cuts you off? And feel free to, if you want to unmute yourself, you can just chime on in. Yep. I think someone just put PO'd. That's a good way to do it. That's a good thing to say. So exactly. Right. So you get a little PO'd sometimes, and how do you start to feel some things in your body. And I'm just going to be authentic with all of you just to show you what kind of conversation we're looking for here. There was one time where someone cut me off in the front of the Fort Pitt tunnels, and I was trying to get to work. This is at a previous job. I used to work for Western Psych over at UPMC before this. And I had this like unbelievable rage, and like somebody cut me off, and it was like really irrational level kind of rage. Right. And I actually felt myself, like my heart rate went up. I was getting like shaky and sweaty, and I actually visualized myself like ramming my car into the back of the other person's car. And for literally like about 6 seconds, that seemed like a great idea. Of course, that's not a good idea. I would have been on like KDKA, and I would have been like, had my licenses revoked, lost my job. My kids would have seen me on the news. It would have been a disaster. So obviously not a good idea, but for some reason in that moment, that felt like something that was reasonable. And, it's like, where does that even come from? Like how many of you have had some interesting thoughts like that when you get upset? Jen, would you like to share? I saw that hand go. I would love a nice authentic story.
Well, I don't get angry, but I get like I have like irrational concerns about my kids driving. I don't know why, but like if they don't text me by the time that they're like, and if they're going far, it's not normally like and they're old. They're not little kids, but all of a sudden I get like this like just really crazy like fear, and I don't know how to back down.
When you have that fear, what do you feel in your body? What does it feel like?
I definitely have a physical reaction. I mean, my heart starts to beat, and I just feel like I want to pace, or I get anxious.
Yeah. How long does it take you to bring yourself back down from that? You get yourself back to a calmer state?
Well, if there's a conclusion where I hear from them or something, but it's very hard for me to do on my own until and it happens with different things. Like it's not always, sometimes I just get like just very anxious about something, and there is no answer to it, and so I do have to take, like I do, if it's possible, I could try to take a walk or try to do something just to get rid of that energy. Is what I've learned.
And even when you're in that level of stress, maybe sometimes it leads to other thoughts, or you perceive situations a little differently sometimes. You know, I get that. Sometimes we get what we call these hot thought type situations. And you know, it's almost some of the kids we serve on a daily basis. Like they're walking down the hallway and one of their peers looks at them and it's like, oh, they must be talking about me. Or someone's laughing. Oh, they must be laughing at me. And so like when we get into these types of acute stress responses, we actually start to filter the information that comes into our brain a lot differently because our brain is actually functioning differently. And we're going to get into that in a minute, just to tell you a little bit about what that means. But Roz, do you have a story you'd like to share?
Yeah, so this actually, I'm muted, right? So this happened to me a week or two ago. So I was running late. I have a 3-month-old puppy at home, and he's a corgi, and he's very cute, but he's a lot of energy. And in the mornings, morning can start a little late because he just requires a lot of attention. So it was a Monday morning too. So I was running late. There's a bunch of snow in my car on top of that. And then I get to school on time somehow. And I'm walking up the stairs. Somebody's holding the door open for me. And I just completely wipe out. Like, it's one thing to wipe out, like trip up the stairs by yourself, but then it's another when like someone's watching you and you trip. So it's just kind of, and like everything, I had coffee in my hands, my glasses flew off, like everything flew off. And this is all at like 7 a.m. So I just like get to my room and just start crying. And I just want to like go home. I want to be done with my day. And I was like, this is everything that went wrong could go wrong. And I'm so upset that I started crying. And I'm like, I shouldn't even be crying. Why is this happening? And it took a while for me to like calm down and bring myself back together.
That's a great example of an acute stress response. And so the question of where are you, you know, is an interesting question that ties in with what we're going to be talking about today. So I want to just ask you the question a little differently. If you could raise your hand or nod, or you can put it in the chat. And it's okay to tell the truth. We're not going to judge you, I promise. So like, just tell us, are you here with us right now 100%? Like, we can see you physically, but are you fully present with us 100% right now? That meaning, like, are your thoughts with us?
Thumbs up, thumbs down,
What was that?
thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, okay, how about give me 50%? Are you at least 50% with us? Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. What about 75%? Okay, good. All right. So we have this varying, level of awareness that we have right now. Martin's talking about these, still going over the last time that he was cut off in traffic. Martin, would you like to talk about that for a second?
You sure you want to hear this, Doc?
I would love to hear this.
Okay. I was on the Parkway West. I was heading out towards the airport, and I look in my rearview mirror and I see this little Volkswagen screaming up the right side of in the slow lane. And I said, "There's no way in the world, because there's insufficient room between me and the car in front of me." But he did it anyway, so I slammed on the brakes, and I was more than aggravated, but I let it go. But he thought that was fun, so he slams on his brakes, and he played with me all the way out to the airport. Kept, he'd slip into the right lane and then dart in front of me again. And by the time we got to the airport, this was when they still had lights out. Well, the lights are out there now again, but he caught a red light, and I'm about 6 cars behind him. And I jumped out of that car. I got up in front of that Volkswagen and I started pounding on the, and I can feel my blood pressure rise now as we're talking about, because I wanted to kill that guy.
Yeah.
I wanted so bad to get him out of that car and just beat him to a bloody pulp, but he wouldn't get out.
Yeah.
And then the light changed. And I was left with, damn, if I'd have had a gun, he'd be dead. But I don't own a gun because I don't trust myself, which is why I drive friendly now.
Mm.
I don't, I used to date a nurse who worked at Western Psych, and she told me, she says, you realize 25% of the people out here they're not sane. 25% of the drivers you're going to run into aren't sane. So now I use that 5-minute rule. So, in 5 minutes, the guy's going to be gone.
Yeah.
So what I do is I just back off. Even with that Volkswagen, I pulled off on the side of the road waiting for him to go. No, he pulled off and waited for me.
Oh my gosh.
Now I got to get to work, so I can't afford to be sitting on the side of the road the rest of the day waiting for him to go. Oh, I was beyond livid. And, and I can still remember his face.
Mm.
Because he knew if he got out of that car, he was a dead man. I would have literally killed that guy.
Yeah.
With my bare hands. But the light changed, thank God, because I'm still here. One of the times that, somebody was looking out for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I have a question for you. How long ago was that?
Had to be in the 70s.
Okay, so that's interesting. It was in the 70s, and you said you were like feeling that stress again.
Well, I can feel it right now.
Yeah. So even from back, all these years, you can still feel it. It's like you can relive it again almost, and you even see the guy's face. And so it's interesting that like when we're in these acute stress responses, and thank you for sharing that. That's an excellent story that it actually like naturally brings us into the moment because we're so focused because our brain is telling us we have a life and death situation going on. Now, in your case, Martin, I think you could argue that could have been the case because you don't know, that guy could have been carrying a gun or something wild like that. But I know like in my case, I was focused, but that wasn't life or death. And, Roz, even though I'm sorry to hear your glasses flew off and your coffee went all over the place and all that, probably wasn't life or death, but these things bring us into the moment 100%. But other things don't. And so we're not fully present every day. And when we're not fully present in something, even though we're physically there, we might actually miss some of the depth, some of the color in the daily life that is around us on a daily basis, but we're missing it because maybe we're thinking about something else. We're thinking about work. We're thinking about, our next appointment. We're thinking about this family member, we're thinking about my kid hasn't texted me and I'm worried about them or whatever. And so there's these times where we're physically there, but we're not, that's about it because we are mentally somewhere else. And so what mindfulness helps us to do, and we'll get into this a little bit more, is we can use mindfulness to actually help us deactivate that acute stress response that's naturally built into us, and then help us get into the moment so we can experience life more fully on a daily basis. Go ahead, Roz. Raj, you want to do this one?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is specific to like kind of COVID specific, but I think it can be relatable to a lot of people about what the world has been like this past year. And so as you can see some facts here, more than 1 in 3 adults in the US have reported some symptoms of anxiety or depression because during the pandemic. And this just kind of goes on, you guys can read it. It explains kind of how a lot of people are just, mental health is just getting like deteriorating with all this ongoing pandemic. And on top, like even before this crazy year has happened, there's all these, we have all these other issues going on. And so stress is an everyday thing for a lot of people. And when kind of going into those different situations that we were just talking about, it goes into kind of when our brain and we're really stressed out and we're feeling that way, it goes into the here, I forgot about this slide. So as you guys, these are the physical reactions of stress and how stress affects our body. Besides mentally, like nobody likes feeling stressed out, right? But when we have stress, like a constant stressors in our lives, it can lead to these physical reactions. So, so the physical reactions, the heart disease, high blood pressure, weakened immune system, and there's also sleep disturbances, social isolation, and routine changes. So, yeah.
Sorry, I was just to interject real quickly. So
Yeah.
like prior to the COVID pandemic, there was a pandemic of mental health concerns. And we saw, particularly in ages, I think somewhere around ages like 14 to 50 or so, like suicide was creeping up as the number 2 or 3 leading cause of death in those areas. And because of the pandemic, this has become worse. Are we having issues? I'm sorry. Are there issues seeing the slides?
Someone had said they couldn't see this. I can see them,
Okay.
but
Yeah, I
don't.
can too.
Okay,
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you. And so as we move forward through the pandemic, we're seeing an amplification of behavioral health concerns. Like we have people who are having health concerns because of COVID. Maybe a loved one had passed away. People who have lost jobs, displacement of their home, from losing a home or something like that. And then social isolation as well can be extremely stressful. And so there are a lot of folks who did not have any behavioral health concerns before the pandemic that now do. And so the system itself actually is becoming overwhelmed and not having enough space for, to be able to properly serve a lot of folks with behavioral health concerns. So there's a lot of things that we can do on the front end preventatively to help understand how we're feeling and to get in front of that a bit to help us prevent us from having to go further down the road where we're in need of services. Which then brings us to what this is, what that reaction, Martin, that reaction you had in in traffic with that nutball person, and then the reaction that I had when somebody cut me off, or the reaction that Roz had when she slipped. It's called the stress response. And so go ahead, Roz.
Yeah. And just kind of to piggyback off of what Dr. Davies was saying, I think one of the big things that we want to take away from this, and like what we are trying to do in general, is a lot of people just like haven't even thought about the effects that before the pandemic, how mental health can really affect you physically. And so even just learning about this stuff it's like kind of eye-opening. It's like, oh, okay, so like this is why I'm feeling this way. So, and once we kind of know that helps us, and we know like simple ways for us to incorporate to make it better, is the first big step, especially in a lot of people that mental health might not be something that's really familiar to them. So that's kind of what this part is. So the stress response is we get into this mode that's called the fight, flight, or freeze mode. If anyone's heard of that before. And so this is something that was kind of developed in our brains when humans first became humans, and when we had to survive in life-threatening situations. So it was very helpful in the early days of humans when we were approached by, say, like a saber-toothed tiger, as you can see on this fun little cartoon. Would we run away from it? Would we try to fight it off? Or would we try to hide under a rock? And so I want to give a little explanation of kind of what's going on in your brain. We do this with like our students, but I think it's super helpful, and I find it interesting. So I want everyone to hold their hand up like a high five. We're going to pretend that our hand is our brain. So first, I want you to wiggle your thumb. And so your thumb represents the area that's called your lower brain. This area is, and so this area is where the fight, flight, or freeze happens. So then you'll fold your thumb over, and then you can wiggle your 4 fingers and then fold them over your thumb. This is the upper brain area, or the cerebral cortex. And so this is the part that makes us like distinctly human and different from other animals, because this is our higher level of rational, moral, and ethical thinking. And so normally when we're in situations, our upper brain kind of deals with and helps us make rational choices. But when we're in a situation, that triggers our lower brain, it kind of what we call is flipping your lid. So the upper brain's just kind of like, this is too much for me, I'm not dealing with it. And then the lower brain goes into that instinctual fight, flight, or freeze. So like it just completely turns off and it goes into that. And this is something that's helpful like when we have to figure out what to do with the saber-toothed tiger. But unfortunately, our body often reacts to situations that are not life-threatening in the same manner. So like these examples that we were talking about, for me, I was tripping up the steps was not a happy experience for me, but it was not something that was going to kill me in that moment. I just was embarrassed and upset. But my body still reacted in that way that there was a saber-toothed tiger right there. And so along with that, what happens physically with our bodies is besides what happens in our brain, the hormones are released. And so we have different symptoms, which is the rapid heartbeat or breathing, maybe flushed or pale skin, dilated pupils, and trembling. And if you're more of a freeze person, you kind of like, no matter what you do, you cannot move from that situation. I'm very much a flight person. I want to like get out of there as soon as I can. And so, but a lot of them are very similar. You kind of just feel very hot. Your body feels very tense. And when this happens as well, it usually takes 20 to 60 minutes for our body to return to normal and us to feel like we're just like a functioning human in everyday life again.
And so these symptoms are very useful for us when we're actually in a real life and death situation. They help us to focus. It's like, am I going to hit the saber-toothed tiger with a club, or am I going to run like heck the other way? And they've shown that like the blood actually goes to certain areas of the body. Like you kind of are getting ready to do something. Exactly. The reptilian brain. Absolutely. And so you're ready to go, like you're ready to fight or flight or freeze. But our brain doesn't really do a good job of activating appropriately. And so these types of fight, flight, or freeze moments get activated in times where we're not in a life and death situation. And over time, if you live in this state, it can cause a lot of damage to your body. We're not meant to be in this state all the time, or even a lot of our day, or even part of our day. This is supposed to be every once in a while. It's a coping mechanism for when we're in a life-threatening type of a state. And so you can actually cause quite a bit of brain damage with this over time if with a lot of the hormones that are released, and your decision-making is tends to be quite poor. So like I had this thought of running into the guy's car in front of me. Like that was like a really bad decision and a really bad thought, because my lid was definitely flipped at that point. And my lower brain, my prehistoric reptilian brain, was in charge at that moment. And it took me a couple of minutes to pull that lid back down. And so I think the next slide is, how do we pull the lid back down effectively and quickly? And that's exactly what I just said on there. So that's good.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that slide.
Okay.
Okay.
So in terms of, so how do we do this? So we like to utilize something called mindfulness. How many of you have heard of mindfulness before? Okay, quite a few folks. And what, like in your opinion, in your words, what does mindfulness mean?
Being aware.
Yeah, being aware. What else? Being in the present moment. Yep. Love these responses. Being aware of yep. Oh, that's a good one. Wash the dishes to wash the dishes. That is a fabulous, fabulous line there. Right. So mindfulness isn't something that, we have to use in these incredible moments, like where we feel like, it helps in an acute stress response, but mindfulness is applicable all the time. And we were actually having a conversation with Jen before everyone came on that, you can even shovel the snow mindfully. You can wash the dishes mindfully. You can take out the trash mindfully, right? There's all these things that you can do mindfully. You can do, you can brush your teeth mindfully, right? How many of you actually pay attention to things when you brush your teeth? Are you thinking about something else? Like There's all these different ways we can do this. And so mindfulness is really the human ability to be fully present, of where, aware of where we are and what we're doing, and doing so non-judgmentally. And that's really an important part about it. Because the other thing is, we don't want to judge ourselves for not being mindful either, because that's okay. Because there's stress and there's thoughts that come into our heads, and sometimes we're just in another place, and that's okay. But what we can do is, yep, exactly. Oh, that's funny. Practice balance and brushing teeth. Stand on one leg. Yeah, that's a great way to actually bring yourself into the moment, because you're definitely, there's different ways that we can quickly bring ourselves into the moment too. But when we use mindfulness to help de-stress out of a stress response, we can actually deactivate that stress response very quickly in a matter of minutes. And it can bring us into a better space. We can bring that lid down and have some better decision making. We can quickly say, it's probably not a good idea for me to go ram that guy's car, like, before I do it, right? And it's really hard to be in the moment, right? So there's a comment on there, I feel like I'm rarely in the moment. It's really tough, because we are constantly bombarded with stuff. And like, even our phones and the media, everything is designed in a way to keep our attention. They have psychologists that work on cell phones, and all the little dings and the colors, and even like the frequencies of the light that come out, everything is designed to pull you back in. Particularly, like, how many of you, when you get like a ding or from a text or something like that, you have this like urge, like, I've checked my phone. Who was that? Like, and it sits with you. If you have to like actually not answer it for a couple of minutes, like, sometimes it can be like bother you, right? And that's because we have been preconditioned to get sucked back in like that again, and live in these very brief moments of time that actually we miss a lot. Roz, if you could go to the next slide. And so mindfulness practices help us increase our ability to regulate emotions, decrease stress, anxiety, and depression, focus our attention, as well as to observe our thoughts and our feelings without judgment. And we become more present in our lives in relation to others. It can help us to make better decisions, to manage our emotions, and be more fully engaged in life. And so it helps us to truly, we don't want to think about these other things that are coming into our mind as something to be blocked, because that's a judgment. That's us saying that something is wrong with those other things that are coming into our mind, and there really isn't anything wrong with that. Because there's always a lot going on, and things come into our mind. There's distractions. And it's not just things in our mind. Sometimes our body distracts us all the time too. Maybe we don't feel well. We have a pain in a certain area. Something doesn't feel right, and it's distracting to us, and it takes us away from that present moment. And sometimes maybe it makes us angry that that's happening, and that type of emotion can take us away from the present moment too. And so what we want to do when we have distractions and we have these feelings, these things that take us away from the present moment, we just recognize it for what it is, and we say, there's that feeling again, there's that thought, but we recognize it non-judgmentally, and then we try to let it go. And that is so hard, to let this stuff go. And so, for instance, I'm going to observe my thoughts like I'm observing my cell phone, right? So I'm not judging my cell phone right now. It's just here, and it's just a cell phone. It's just this thing in my experience, in my lived experience right now. And I've just recognized it without judgment, and I'm putting it down to the side and bringing myself back to the attention of everyone on the Zoom call. And so that's kind of what we need to do to pull ourselves back into the moment. Because these things, when we're going to practice being really still in a little bit here and focus on our breathing. And when we do that, sometimes all these other things start to come to life. Our body has a really great way of filling the gaps. And we feel like we always have to be doing something or thinking about something. And if we're not always doing, then we're judging ourselves because we're not doing. And the act of doing nothing is actually the act of doing something. And we have to practice that for our own well-being. Go ahead, Russ.
Just another way to imagine that too, something that I'm a visual person. So what I like to do is if I see a thought pop up in my head, I like the thoughts like typed out, and I kind of watch it float away, like, and watch like how you like watch clouds float through the sky, you know. It's a lot easier said than done, like Dr. Davies said, but it's kind of fun to like just watch it float by, because you know those thoughts are going to pop up like regardless whether you want them to or not. And what mindfulness like emphasizes is like those thoughts are temporary. Like those judgments, those anything that's popping up in your head that might make you feel a negative emotion, they're going to go away. They might come back, but what mindfulness focuses on what you can actually do in the moment, and what you being in the present and what you can control. And so when we spend time and we just kind of let those thoughts like float on by, it helps us focus on the things that are good and those positives, and sometimes there aren't a lot of positives, but when we spend the time looking at even just small positive things, those add up and they make us feel a lot better than focusing on the negatives.
Thanks, Roz. Could you hit the next slide, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. If you could hit the next slide after that, that would be great. All right. So we have just a little tiny video here just to further illustrate what mindfulness can do in our lives. Hopefully it works.
You guys can still see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You might have to do the volume. There we go. Perfect.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. So I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
Definitely some excellent points. The gist. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
So that's, they talked about an important thing in there, and that's recognizing that you're getting to that state too, right? You can start to pick up on things when you notice them. And when you're in the moment, you can notice these things a little better too. When you start to get agitated, when you're starting to get to that point, and you can utilize some skill sets to bring yourself back into a calmer space. And so that's what we're going to get into right now and practice a little bit. And I think from what the comments I'm seeing from here is that quite a few of you have already been doing this for quite some time, which is absolutely fantastic. So I have a question for you. How many have you have been breathing for quite a while? Just raise your hand if that is a fact. Okay. Just want to make
You
sure.
mean normal breathing, or do you mean?
Just breathing, and because
That's
if
how
not,
much more.
we'll call 911 just to let them know. But just want to make sure that you've been breathing for a while. Okay, all your life. Good. I'm glad.
I thought that was a trick question.
That's just it. Just wanted to see if you've been breathing for a while. Okay, great. So we've been breathing for a while, but when do we typically notice 3/4 of a century? That's funny. So how do we notice? When do we notice our breathing typically? In general, like it tends to be when we stop breathing, or there's some kind of interruption, right? We're starting to choke. We notice that we notice our breathing. We maybe are, you did something really strenuous and you're out of breath and you notice your breathing, right? Maybe you're diving in a swimming pool and you notice that you're not breathing. So that we notice our breathing when it doesn't really happen, but how much do we actually notice our breathing on a daily basis beyond that? Or is it something that we kind of take for granted sometimes? We kind of are like, well, yeah, that's just something that always happens. And so I just want to, let's take it to the next step a little bit. And what I'd love for you all to do, and if you've never done this before, this could feel maybe quite different, and it could feel silly, it could feel great. No judgments here, and if you don't want to do it, that's fine too. Just want to watch and participate that way. If you could take one hand and put it on your chest and one hand and put it on your stomach, and just do one thing for me. I just want you to take one breath in and notice where your hands go up. Do your hands go up? Do you have a breath that kind of is a little bit more in the chest, or is it a little bit more in the stomach? Both? Where would you say your hand is going up?
Chest.
Chest? Both?
I've been doing Tai Chi, so mine's down.
Oh, she's good.
Good. So we know, and Denise kind of led on the little secret there, which is awesome, that we know that sometimes, typically we breathe from the chest, like we feel that chest go up. That's called the chest breath. And the more we're stressed, the more it comes from the chest. That breath becomes a little shallower as we get a little bit more stress. And it takes time to switch it over to a little bit more of a tummy breath, or one from the abdomen. So just take a couple of breaths again. Put your hand, one hand on your tummy and one hand on your chest, and try to focus your breathing. With some big breaths, focus your breathing on your tummy. And it's okay that your chest moves a little bit. That's no big deal. Just try to focus on getting your tummy to go up and down when you breathe with those big breaths. So it looks like, from what I could see, that quite a few of you were practicing, so I appreciate that. And so, Jen, were you able to get it to go to your tummy a little bit more?
Yes, my
What?
tummy is unusually large, COVID large. Hate to focus on it.
That's okay. So how did you get it to go more to your tummy? What did you do to?
I just thought about it and use those muscles more.
Okay. When you were thinking about that, what other thoughts were in your mind?
That I don't
COVID.
tell you.
Good tummy.
that my tummy needs a little work.
It's interesting because like we're focusing on our breathing, but then we have these other thoughts that start coming in, right? And we're judging ourselves. And I think that was Dorothy I saw in there that said that maybe she started to breathe a little deeper to get that tummy breath a little bit more activated. So that's a key to this, right? We want to take nice deep breaths, really increase that flow of oxygen. And so we want to take that deep breath if we can. We want to try to do that through our nose. Like really focus that deep breath in through our nose. Try to breathe in for at least 4 or 5 seconds. Then you want to hold it, kind of pause for a couple of seconds, and then release out through our mouths, right? And so think about when you release that breath, like you are blowing out candles on a birthday cake, or you're cooling down, a bowl of hot soup. Like it's that you want to, but release for 4 or 5 seconds. So in for 4 or 5, hold it for a couple, and release for 4 or 5. And so we're going to just do that a couple of times. And, sometimes it's helpful to close your eyes if you want to do this. If you fall asleep, that's okay. That's just your body telling you something right there in itself. And sorry, that comment threw me off a little bit. And so, it's important though, when we're doing this, I want you to recognize, try to feel what your body's telling you at this time. Like, what are those sensations that you're having in your body? What are the thoughts that are having that you're having in your mind while you're doing this? So we're just going to take a minute, and I'm going to guide like the first 3 or 4 breaths, and then we'll do a couple more on our own, and then we'll bring it back and talk about what that felt like. So so it's important to be in a comfortable position. Try to let the chair or the couch or whatever you're sitting in to absorb the full weight of your body. Like just kind of let it go. Let yourself go a little bit. And if you're walking around or doing something else, just allow that weight of your body to go to the bottom of your feet, or maybe lean, which is fine too. And then with one big deep breath, just breathe in through your nose with that big tummy breath. Hold it and release. And big breath in through your nose. Hold it and release. Take another breath in. Hold it and release. Now just do a couple on your own. Just when you're ready, open your eyes. I would love to hear some feedback on what you were feeling during that time. What were you thinking? Too much oxygen. Sometimes our bodies aren't used to that.
I felt like it calmed me a lot. But I was focusing on trying to, I feel like breathing in to 4 or 5 was hard, but breathing out was okay.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes we do that to help train our minds to try to get the right rhythm down. And it doesn't have to necessarily be that 4 or 5 seconds in. It could be 2 or 3, whatever works for you. It's just the point of being able to take whatever that deep breath is in for you and releasing that. How many folks had some rushing thoughts happening? Thinking about what you have to do next, thinking about what we were doing before this, reliving a memory or a moment. What about, anybody hear anything? Anybody notice any sounds other than me?
My dog. He came to check on me. It was too quiet.
Yep. It's a great strategy to use with kids too. You noticed all your muscle tension. That's interesting. Sometimes we don't notice that, right? Until we get our neck goes out or something like that, right? we start to notice our body telling us certain things. And so, yep, Apple Watch, there's that thing right there, right? That technology that's like, oh, you're a little bit too mindful. I need to like increase your distraction level. Stop being so mindful and taking care of yourself. So, you know, when these things distract us or come into our minds, as Roz was saying, we want to practice. Like sometimes we can put them on a cloud, watch them go away. We just recognize what they are, bring ourselves back to our breathing. There's that thought, back to the breathing. There's that thought, back to the breathing. And so what we're going to do real quickly is sort of a little bit of an end activity is I want you to think about something you're really grateful for. Because sometimes we really look at things through quite a negative lens, and that can take a toll on ourselves too. That can take a toll on our bodies and our minds and things. And it doesn't have to be something like really, really astounding either. You know, it just could be something that's seemingly small, but that you might be really grateful for. Like I'm very grateful that my second grade daughter had an assignment today where she had to go out and build a geometric shape in the snow and measure it. And I'm just grateful that I had that opportunity to do that with her and really focus in on that moment and what that was like. And that brought me joy, right? I felt a certain way about that. That brought me some really like a nice stress relief to my day. Does anyone else have a moment recently? Thank you, Martin.
He's good. I appreciate my neighbors. I had COVID in December and it was amazing. Every day they were dropping stuff off.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. How did that make you feel?
You know, I've always appreciated them, but it just renewed it.
Wonderful.
Got it closer to the heart.
Yeah. I think someone put their daughter's laugh. I think that was what just came up on the chat here. How does your daughter's laugh make you feel?
I just I don't know, just when it's a genuine laugh,
Mm-hmm.
like, cause she's 5, so sometimes she has like fake ones, but but when it's a genuine laugh, it just warms my heart. Like I don't know, I can, no matter how I'm feeling when I hear it, it just makes me feel good.
That's such a great example. Anyone else have something they're grateful for they'd like to share?
I had a really stressful day and somebody sent me a cat video on the internet that made me laugh so hard that I forgot all about my stressful day.
Awesome. Love it.
Sometimes even when I take the dog out and just going outside, and then you just have that rush of cold air, and just like sometimes at night, I mean, before we had a dog, I don't go outside at night just to look up at the stars, and it's just so beautiful, and you miss it. I miss it all the time, you know? So I'm thankful when I take her out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. Met so many great people that have supported Chris due to the diagnosis. What a great way to shift something that, into a grateful lens. So what we're going to do for this next part is we're going to practice our breathing, and we're just going to do that for just a little bit and allow ourselves to get comfortable and get into the moment to really just focus on our breathing. And then we're going to start to think about that grateful thing, whatever that is. If it's the stars, your dog, the cat videos, food, whatever it is, just think about what that is and how that makes you feel. But we're going to get into that in a minute. And so what we're going to do is just a little practice to allow ourselves to get into a better space and to allow ourselves to be a little bit more mindful and experience life a little more fully. So if you could get into a comfortable sitting position and allow your feet to be firmly planted on the floor if you're sitting down, and just allow your body to fully relax the full weight of into the full weight of your chair. And you can close your eyes if you want and take a big deep breath in and out. And in. And out. Continue to breathe deeply through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathing from your tummy. And if there's any distractions, sounds, thoughts, physical feelings, just recognize them and bring yourself back to your breathing. This is the only place you have to be right now. Nowhere else but here. Taking care of yourself and relaxing while you breathe deeply. Now focus your attention on the top of your head. And now focus your attention on your forehead. And try to release the tension in the muscles in your forehead. Moving down to your eyes, releasing the muscles and the tension. Your nose, your mouth, your jaw, your ears, your neck, while breathing deeply, release the tension in your shoulders. Your arms, your hands and fingers, if there's a distraction, just recognize it. Bring yourself back to your breathing. Release your chest. Your stomach. Your waist. Your thighs. your knees, your calves, and while breathing deeply, release the tension in your feet. Allow yourself to feel totally relaxed and think of that thing that you're grateful for. How does that make your body feel? How does that make your mind feel? Allow that positive energy to radiate through your body. And when you're ready, you may bring yourself back into the current moment at your own pace. And you may take that positive energy, that grateful thing, through the rest of your day. So just one last question for everybody. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today and learning just a little bit about mindfulness and a little introduction to it and going through a practice with us. How did that make you feel? Did you feel a little differently?
It definitely helped me. It was very relaxing.
Wonderful. And it doesn't have to be something so long and profound like on a daily basis, right? You definitely don't want to close your eyes when you're outside the 4-pit tunnels and start breathing. That would be a bad idea. So, but what you can do is just to bring yourself into the moment, you can start to focus on the smaller things, the sensations, like how you focus on your body sensations. You can focus on how your body's feeling then, or even like, how does the steering wheel feel? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it bumpy? How does the seat feel like with your hands? Like, how do your feet feel on the pedals? These kind of things that can bring us a little bit more into the moment to recognize the wonderful things that are happening around us on a daily basis that can bring us a lot of joy. So I think that's it. Roz, do you have anything else?
I was just gonna add, if that was something that you guys liked and you want to be able to do more mindfulness things, there are a lot of apps out there that some are free, some you pay for. So like the Chill Project, we partner a lot with Headspace. We really they have some great like guided meditations for a lot of different things, for sleeping, for starting your day, like all that stuff. So that's great. There's also Calm, and then there's just a bunch of other stuff like on YouTube too. If you like just taking like 3 to 5 minutes out of your day and doing like a mindfulness moment like that can really be helpful. You can start your day with it and starting off like feeling fresh, end your day with it, end on a good note, getting ready for bed, especially if you have issues like falling asleep. This definitely helps people fall asleep sometimes. So it's very relaxing. So I was just going to mention that in case that was something that you guys liked.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, especially before sleep. And I see someone commented that actually their headache's gone now. So that's awesome. Mindfulness has been proven to help with pain reduction significantly. And just one last thing to comment on is if you do have, something physically that doesn't feel so great, and there's a pain happening, sometimes you can practice mindfulness by doing a body scan like we did, relaxing your muscles a little bit at a time, and you get to that part of the body where the pain is, and you focus on breathing through that. And you can actually visualize yourself breathing in through that area of the body and breathing out through that part of the body, and then moving on to the next part. And that can be quite a healing, exercise to do as well. So thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of the Chill Project and Roz and Lakin, really grateful. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Well, thank you. This has been fantastic. There was one question. I don't know. Anything for tinnitus? My head buzzes constantly. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely worth a try. I haven't seen anything about, mindfulness and tinnitus, but it's interesting to see if tinnitus, if that is related to any stress. And, sometimes we can have, concerns and issues like that related to stress that could be relieved through mindfulness. So good question.
Does anybody use an app, or does anybody do any kind of mindfulness on their own before this, or? Sam? And you do Headspace, Martin?
We do a lot of this at my school also.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What school district are you in again?
Mount Lebanon.
Oh, okay.
Great.
I tried that from your clip, the Dan Harris. I tried his 21-day challenge. It was really good. I loved it.
Wonderful.
Headspace has a program on Netflix now. That if you have Netflix, that really nice, just guided meditation for various different things.
And if you're also into running, the Nike Running Club app has like some guided runs with Headspace too, they're pretty fun.
Oh, that's interesting. So
yeah.
It's
like you go for a run and somebody's like talking you through it, and they have, but it's like the Headspace guy that's doing it, which is really, it's like relaxing, but also not relaxing because you're running. So it's
well, that I've never heard of that. That's pretty interesting. And Catherine says she uses a Spotify playlist. I enjoy the Shine app. Are those two separate things, Catherine?
Well, I listened to the podcast from Shine, which is based on the app, but it's free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they just have like small daily intentions and some guided meditation.
That's fantastic. It sounds like a lot of folks have already incorporated stuff into their lives. I need to pull it in because I really do. I haven't been doing it, but I will. But it's very relaxing. You have a perfect voice for this.
Oh, thanks. And I think just on an ending note for us, one of the other things that you can do to help live in a moment a little bit more is, if you think about what a kid is like walking into a toy store, right, for the first time, or you've seen something for the first time, you want to see things through childlike eyes sometimes. And even to relive something like brushing your teeth or shoveling the snow, but like try to think about it like this is the first time I've done it. Like do a little pretend play like the kids do. This is the first time I ever brushed my teeth. Oh, this is amazing. Like, what does this feel like? And all of a sudden you start to notice everything about it and how it feels, and all kinds of stuff. And that can help us with some of these intrusive thoughts or bodily feelings that we're having during that time, and really help us bring us into the moment.
Yeah, it's sort of like Elf. You could try to imitate the character on Elf. Have you seen that movie? I would imagine you have if you have a second grader.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was all very excited about everything. So
yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
if we approach things like that a little bit more, how differently we would experience and see the world.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right, we do have to, I am gonna pull a winner for our gift card this week, and we do have a $25 card for Chipotle. And I have a little pile of names here. And I have Dorothy. Is Dorothy here tonight? I thought. There you go, Dorothy. Congratulations. If you, I don't think I have your address. If you want to email it to me, then I can just send you this card in the mail. Is that all right?
Sure, I'll send that to you.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well, tonight, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Thank you, Dr. Davies and Roz and Lakeland for coming. And I appreciate everybody being here. We have a call at 5 o'clock on Thursday if you're interested. And then our Sunday night is on Monday night because Sunday is Valentine's Day. So we have Nicole Kalusa and Nicole Riley will be speaking on intimacy and connection next week. So so that's at 7 o'clock. So you'll still use the Sunday night link again for that on Monday night, which is at 7 o'clock. So with that, I close and I appreciate everybody being here. We'll see you either Thursday or Monday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.